Assalamu alaikum everyone. Part 5 is linked up here, and today we will be addressing the idea of the Son of Man. Now we all know that Jesus is called the Son of Man in the New Testament. However, was he called the Son of Man in a divine sense? Well, we're about to find out. And let's see if Paperboy is able to claw something back from all his previous failings. But before that, as usual, we start off by saying Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
And we have another problem within Judaism because we have the Son of Man problem. And it says in Daniel 7:13 to 14, it says, I kept looking at the night vision, and behold, and it says, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, one like the Son of Man was coming. And it says, he came up to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him, and to him was given dominion, glory, and a kingdom, that all the peoples, nations, and men of every language might serve him. His dominion is everlasting, is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom is one which shall not be destroyed. So now what we see, this is a simile, because it says one like the Son of Man. So simile is one thing with another thing of a different kind. So therefore, if Jesus called himself the Son of Man, we know this Son of Man was a simile. So therefore, this person that comes cannot be a human. Because we look at Daniel Boyarin, for example, he's a historian, and he says in his book, the two thrones theophany of Daniel 7 was no doubt disturbing to at least some Jews at antiquity. We know that other Jews adopted wholeheartedly or simply inherited doubleness of Israel's God, the old Ancient of Days, and the young appearing rider on clouds. Now in Near Eastern culture, a rider of the clouds was only something you associated with God. So it's like if I said to you, next week you'll see me shooting thunderbolts from the sky, you'll think, oh, who do I think I am, Zeus or something? But this was a clear thing that early Jews understood. The cloud rider was something you only associated with God. Then he says in his book, there are two legacies left to us by Daniel 7. It is the ultimate source of the Son of Man terminology for a heavenly redeemer figure, and it's also the best evidence we have for a continuation of a very ancient binitarian Israelite theology deep into the Second Temple period. So then we see in modern Judaism, they try and cover up this fact. As Peter Heyman notes, from the book of Daniel, nearly on every variety of Judaism maintained the pattern of the supreme God and his vice-regent or visor. Hardly any variant of Judaism seemed to have been able to manage with just one divine entity. So then we see also the Qumran scholars such as Wise and Tabor, the Jewish priests using the book of Daniel 7-week prophecy and the book of Jubilees, calculated that the time window of the Messiah's arrival would be between 10 BC and 2 CE, and this is when Jesus arrived, between this time frame. And we see as well, for example, we see Rabbi Akiva identified that the man in Daniel 7 as the Messiah, but Akiva's opinion was rejected as blasphemy because it could lead to heresy. That was a belief in Yeshua. And obviously we see rabbis talk about the Lord in Psalms 110 was the Messiah.
You do or not?
And then we see in time the response to Jewish followers of Yeshua. Hold on. Sorry. Let me just go through this.
Did you say the Book of Jubilees?
Yeah, it was an apocryphal which they used.
Who used?
The Essenes.
Stop your nose. Why do you keep rubbing your nose every time you speak to me?
No, my nose running. But let me just continue with this. So it says in time, in response to Jewish followers of Yeshua and the Catholic Church, Orthodox Judaism rejected the idea of a heavenly or divine Messiah. He was merely a human, and God himself, according to Maimonides, was solitary in heaven. No one beside him shall share his throne. But I'll go to the Jewish Encyclopedia, and this is what they say. In Daniel 7:13, the passage in which it occurs in the biblical Aramaic, it certainly connotes a human being. Many see a messianic significance in this verse, but in all probability the reference is to an angel with a human appearance, perhaps Michael. Now this is from Jewish Encyclopedia. They're saying the Son of Man is an angel, but Jesus claimed to be the Son of Man. So this is not something Christians invented. How can the earliest Jews say this prophecy refers to an angel coming down to earth? But Jesus called himself the Son of Man. And this was clearly they're the same person.
Are you sure?
So clearly, we're seeing that there was a problem in early Judaism because they associated this other person as sitting on the throne next to God and having the same attributes. So let's say, for argument's sake, let's say Jesus wasn't God. How is it the earliest Jews, the Son of Man was an angel? And they're saying it in the Jewish encyclopedia, but Jesus claimed to be the Son of Man. This is not something Christians invented.
Well, first of all, none of these sources said that he had the same attributes as God. And, he throws up a lot of sources, so let's just get into it. So Paperboy gives us the definition of a simile. Now it says a figure of speech involving the comparison of one thing with another thing of a different kind. Now why does he give us this? Well, it's because in Daniel 7:13 it says, with the clouds of heaven one like a son of man was coming. Now Jesus is called the Son of Man in the New Testament, as Paperboy has already told us. However, inadvertently, by doing this, Paperboy has said that Jesus is not the one that they expect to be coming, because the one who is coming is the one like a Son of Man, not the Son of Man. So that's a problem. Now it gets even worse when he tries to quote Daniel Boyarin. If we see here, we see there's an omission in the text. Now why is that? Well, it's because what it actually says is this. The two thrones theophany of Daniel 7 was no doubt disturbing to at least some of the Jews in antiquity, such as the author of Daniel himself in the 2nd century BC. Now, a few things here. Why does it say such as the author of Daniel? I mean, if they believed that Daniel the prophet was the author of Daniel himself, wouldn't they just say that Daniel himself had an issue with this? And secondly, why did he have an issue with it in the first place? Now it gets even worse, because if we look at what else Boyarin has to say on the same page, he says the following. They are among the earliest ideas about God in the religion of the Israelites, comparable to the ancient relationship between the gods El and Baal, in which Baal comes near in his shining storm cloud. El is the transcendent one. El, the ancient sky god of all the Canaanites, who are pagan. His name comes to just mean God in the biblical Hebrew. And he was the god of justice, while his younger associate, named Baal, by most of the Canaanites, but not by the Israelites, who called him Yahweh, was the god of war. Now this is very interesting, which is why I bolded it, but we'll get back to it. In the biblical religion, in order to form a more perfect monotheism, these two divinities have been merged into one, but not quite seamlessly. So when Muslims and Jews ask Trinitarians to explain the Trinity, this is why they cannot do it in a seamless fashion. The more you dig into it, the more we find heresy upon heresy. We find logical contradictions, so on and so forth, because these divinities have been merged in history. They have been concocted in history to give what Trinitarians blindly follow today. The Israelites were a part of that ancient Canaanite community, differentiated to some extent by different ideas about God that they developed through their historical existence, but the idea of a duality within God was not easily escaped. However, much certain leaders sought to enforce it. A God that is very far away generates most inevitably a need for a God who is closer. A God who judges us requires almost inevitably a God who will fight for us and defend us. As long as the second God is completely subordinate to the first, the principle of monotheism is not violated. So not only did the Israelites adopt a pagan theology and merge two distinct gods, two distinct beings, into one to make it fit their monotheistic ideology, they could not do so unless they made one subordinate to the other. Does that sound similar? And it gets even worse. Now I said I will get back to this section, and this is exactly what I'm going to do. On the following page, page 46, Daniel Boyarin says the following. The two thrones apocalypse in Daniel calls up a very ancient strand in Israel's religion, one in which it would seem the El-like sky god of justice and the younger rider on the clouds, storm god of war, have not really been merged as they are for most of the Bible. I find it plausible that this highly significant passage is a sign of the religious traditions that gave rise to the notion of a father divinity and a son divinity that we find in the Gospels. Taking the two-throne vision out of the context of Daniel 7 as a whole, we find several crucial elements. There are two thrones. There are two divine figures, one apparently old and one apparently young. The younger figure is to be the Redeemer and eternal ruler of Israel. So what did Paperboy say earlier? That the second Yahweh is the Redeemer of Israel. He's the one that will redeem Israel. Is he now saying that Jesus is younger than the Father? Is this what he's trying to portray? Because he is quoting Daniel Boyarin after all. Or were they both eternal? Which is it? It would certainly not be wrong to suggest, I think, that even if the actual notion of the Messiah or Christ is not yet present here, the notion of a divinely appointed divine king over earth is, and that this has great potential for understanding the development of the Messiah Christ notion in later Judaism, including Christianity, of course. The second God-Redeemer figure thus comes, on my view, out of the earlier history of Israel's nation. Once the Messiah had been combined with the younger divine figure that we found in Daniel 7, then it becomes natural to ascribe to him also the term Son of God. The occupant of one throne was an ancient, the occupant of the other a young figure in human form. Now what's tragic is that Paperboy quoted Boyarin thinking that he will help him out, and even he himself has quoted him when he said that this was a binitarian theology. Now let me again remind everyone the title of his video. Yeah, it's not about the binitarian God, is it? It's about the Trinitarian God, and that the Trinity is a Jewish concept. So this doesn't help him there, and it gets even worse because the Cloud Rider, though it comes from a binitarian theology, this binitarian theology was developed by the Israelites in order to merge two pagan gods, one of which is the Cloud Rider called Baal, who's also called the God of War. So in all seriousness, guys, I mean, I could just end it here and say job done, because I know after refuting roughly 40 minutes of his video, he hasn't shown us the Trinity, he hasn't shown us that the second Yahweh is Jesus, he hasn't shown us that the memory is Jesus, he hasn't shown us that the prophecies lead to him or refer to him, and there's so many gymnastics and whatnot, and then to top it all, we've got this pagan ideology thrown in. But I don't want to do that. I want to continue, because I just want to show you guys that every source that he has will reject what you guys believe in. And notice the similarities between what the Israelites did with the Canaanites and your own theology. We have two distinct gods. Now you guys might be saying, well, we don't believe in three distinct gods. We believe in three distinct persons of one God. Well, guys, seriously, when you describe the Trinity, do you not say that the Father is fully God, the Son is fully God, and the Holy Spirit is fully God? Because you can't have half a God, you can't have a third of a God. So you have to say that they are fully divine, they are fully God, each and every one of them. Another similarity, do we not see that the second person is called the Son of God? Now in the Canaanite / Israelite theology, binitarian theology, the second God, who is younger, is then called the Son of God, because it becomes natural to ascribe this term Son, referring to the younger one. And isn't this what Jesus is called, the Son of God? Now you guys might be saying, well, he's not younger, he's eternal. Well, this is where your theology has stemmed from. It stemmed from this cross between pagan and monotheism. And there are other similarities. I mean, we've seen the Yahwehs, the two powers heresy. We've seen the Memra. It's not an orthodox tradition. It's one that has been used by the Hellenistic Jews. It's been one that's been used by the Kabbalists. It's been one that's been given multiple terms. We haven't seen the prophecies lead to Jesus for the most part. Only one, which is the scepter, being departed from Judah, and then the Messiah will not come until that has happened. But if we put together the other prophecies, it's not even Jesus. I mean, guys, seriously, think, reflect, just, I don't understand. Why do you guys refuse to read the explicit statements by Jesus, where he says, I am the Messiah, but there is only one God, worship him. I am telling you what Moses told you, that there is only one God, and that is the Father. Why do you guys ignore these explicit statements? Why do you pick bits and pieces of implicit statements to piece together something that has a pagan origin? Think, reflect. That's my plea to you. Because as a monotheist, I want you to worship the one God. Anyway, what's ironic is that Paperboy gives us these 3 examples to accuse the Jews of covering up the truth. It's ironic because obviously what he presented from Daniel Boyarin doesn't actually show what he wants it to show. It actually shows the complete opposite, that it's a pagan ideology. And therefore, the Jews have every right to reject it. But let's go through it. The first example is that Rabbi Akiva's opinion was rejected as blasphemy because it could lead to heresy. And the Sanhedrin 38a and 38b are quoted to that effect. So let's have a look at it. So Paperboy is right that the Sanhedrin 38a does indeed reference the Messiah, as we can see. However, in the Sanhedrin 38b, it says the following. Until when will you desacralize the divine presence by equating God with a person? Rather, the correct interpretation is that both thrones are for God, as one throne is for judgment and one throne is for righteousness. So it's the same God, about 2 thrones. But we go on, as there's more in the Sanhedrin 38b. Rabbi Yohanan cites several examples where the counterclaim is in the same verse as the claim of the heretics. The verse states, for what nation is there so great that has God so near to them as the Lord our God is whenever we call upon him? Where the term near is written in plural, kerovim, but the term upon him is written in the singular. Another verse states, and who is like your people, like Israel, a nation one in earth, whom God went to redeem unto himself for a people. References 2 Samuel 7:23. Where the term went is written in the plural, halechu, but the term himself is written in the singular. Another verse states, I beheld till thrones were placed, and one that was ancient of days did sit. Daniel 7:9. Where the term thrones is written in the plural, charasavan, but the term sit is written in the singular. So as we see here, despite the plurality used within the text, it still means a singular being. And this is in line with what we read earlier in section 17 of the Sanhedrin 38b. And finally, if we look at section 19 of 38b, we read the following. A certain heretic said to Rav Idit, it is written in the verse concerning God, and to Moses he said, come up to the Lord. This heretic raised a question. It should have stated, come up to me. Rav Idit said to him, this term, the Lord, in that verse is referring to the angel Metatron, whose name is like the name of his master, as it is written, and he quotes Exodus 23, verses 20 through 21. And this goes back to what we were showing earlier on, that the second Yahweh is not Jesus. Now, of course, he has neglected the criteria that he set down, both when it comes to understanding the Old Testament and its literary form, which is why he did not see this, or chose not to see this. So Paperboy in part 5 was very confident about his prophecy trail, that he gave us these 8 prophecies and said that a mathematician by the name of Peter Stoner, who was a Christian by the way, calculated that Jesus has fulfilled all of these. Then we went through the prophecies in his presentation, and then we showed that 3 of these have already been nullified. But then I also went to say that I would address Zechariah 9 and Psalm 22 when the time came. And now the time has come to address Zechariah 9, considering it's related to Daniel 7. In the Sanhedrin 98a, section 13, it says the following. Rabbi Alexandri says, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi raises a contradiction between 2 depictions of the coming of the Messiah. It is written, there came with the clouds of heaven one like unto a son of man, and there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom. His dominion is an everlasting dominion. And that's in Daniel 7 verses 13 to 14. And a connection is made to Zechariah 9:9, because it says, and it is written, behold, your king will come to you. He is just as victorious, lowly, and riding upon a donkey and upon a colt, the foal of a donkey. Now, I know what you guys might be thinking. You might be thinking, well, why have you got an issue with this? Because in all 4 Gospels, we see that Jesus came riding on a donkey. Prophecy fulfilled. What's your problem? Well, let's have a look at the next part. Rabbi Alexandri explains, if the Jewish people merit redemption, the Messiah will come in a miraculous manner with the clouds of heaven. If they do not merit redemption, the Messiah will come lowly and riding upon a donkey. So the problem isn't actually mine, the problem is yours, because it's you guys, Trinitarians, Christians as a whole, that believe that Jesus came to redeem you 2,000 years ago from your sins and be your salvation. However, he came on a donkey. Now, if you guys merited that redemption, he would have come on the clouds. So ask yourselves now, are we actually saved? Because the Sanhedrin says otherwise. It says that we have not merited redemption, which is why he came on a donkey and not on the clouds of heaven. Now you guys might be saying, well, he's going to come on the clouds of heaven anyway. Well, that means you haven't been saved yet, which means the crucifixion is for nothing. So even if we accept that Jesus is the cloud rider and he will come on the clouds of heaven to redeem you guys, it hasn't happened yet. So where is your salvation? And that's why we can now add Zechariah 9:9 to the prophecies unfulfilled. And then he goes on to accuse them of changing the meaning of the term Adon in Psalm 110. Some said that it was the Messiah, which Paperboy would agree with, but he also says that other rabbis said that the word Adon referred to Abraham or the people of Israel, and he gave a few references such as the Midrash and Sanhedrin again. And let me just remind you guys that just saying the word Messiah doesn't make him divine. So even if you choose to go for the opinion that the term Adon in Psalm 110 is a reference to the Messiah, you still have to prove that the Messiah is divine. And you further have to prove that this divine Messiah is part of a triunity of persons in the one being of God from the Old Testament and the Old Scriptures and the Old commentaries and so on and so forth, if you really want to convince us that you have the truth. And so far, you have nothing. However, the last accusation that Paperboy throws, which is at Maimonides, is the one I want to address. Now, the second principle of faith by Maimonides is quite remarkable because it says the following. The second principle is God's unity, may he be exalted. To witness this, one who is the cause and the existence of everything is one. His oneness is unlike the oneness of a genus or of a species, nor is it like the oneness of a single composed individual which can be divided into many units. Nor is his oneness like that of a simple body which is one in number but infinitely divisible. Rather, he, may he be exalted, is one with a oneness for which there is no comparison at all. This second principle is attested to by the verse, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God, the Lord is one." Deuteronomy 6:4. And this is remarkable because what we see in the Quran, in Surah Al-Ikhlas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ, meaning nor is there to him any equivalent. And in chapter 42, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ, meaning there is nothing like unto him. So as we see, Maimonides is in agreement with the Quran when it says that there is nothing like God. And indeed, we see this message in the Old Testament. We see it in Isaiah 46:9, where God says, "Remember the former things long past, for I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is no one like me." So guys, ask yourselves, why is Maimonides agreeing with the Quran? Is it because he is a part of some grand conspiracy, as Paperboy has claimed that the Jews are covering up the Trinity because they don't want to believe? Or is it because the history doesn't agree with the Trinity, but it agrees with Tawheed? And this is why he is in agreement with the Quran. Now, I want to share something with you guys quickly, and it's from the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا يُؤْمِنُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِاللَّهِ إِلَّا وَهُمْ مُشْرِكُونَ. In translation, and most of them believe not in Allah except while they associate others with him. That's in chapter 12, verse 106. And it's exactly what we keep telling you guys. Jesus says explicitly that the Father is God. Worship him. Every single prayer he directs to the Father. And you guys keep going and worshiping him and the Holy Spirit. And it gets worse for the Catholics because they, who follow the tradition of the Coleridgians, who worship Mary as well. And why? You believe in Allah. You believe in Allah. You call him the Father, but to us is Allah. It's just two different names. You believe in him, but you associate others with him. And that's all we're calling you back to, the worship of the one true God. Now, before we wrap up, I do want to finally address this part about the Son of Man in the Jewish Encyclopedia. However, Paperboy does so much damage to himself here that I'm just going to let him commentate on this.
Now, this is from Jewish Encyclopedia. They're saying the Son of Man is an angel, but Jesus claimed to be the Son of Man. So this is not something Christians invented. How can the earliest Jews say this prophecy refers to an angel coming down to earth? But Jesus called himself the Son of Man. And this was clearly, they're the same person.
Are you sure?
So clearly, we're seeing that there was a problem in early Judaism because they associated this other person as sitting on the throne next to God and having the same attributes. So let's say, for argument's sake, let's say Jesus wasn't God. How is it the earliest Jews, the Son of Man was an angel? And they're saying it in the Jewish Encyclopedia, but Jesus claimed to be the Son of Man. This is not something Christians invented.
Very passionate. What can I say? Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope this has been beneficial for you. To my brothers and sisters, Ramadan Mubarak. May Allah bless you all. May He bestow upon you patience and goodwill in this holy month and increase you in Iman, Taqwa and good character, inshallah, Ameen. And please, don't forget the oppressed. Don't forget our brothers and sisters who are suffering at the hands of regimes. Donate. Do whatever you can to help them out, especially during Ramadan, for they haven't forsaken Allah. So please do not forsake them. Inshallah, Ameen. To everyone else, take care of yourselves during this pandemic. I know that the hot weather is making us feel very trapped because we want to go out, but stay inside, take care of each other, take care of your families, and use the time productively, whether it's to catch up on family, or revive lost hobbies, or to chase your dreams, whatever. Use the time productively. At the end of the day, time is the only thing that we cannot get back. So with that being said, everything that I have said that's good has come from Allah. Every mistake that I have made has come from myself, from my own ignorance. You can contact me on Twitter or comment in the section below. And with that, guys, till next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.